Before we jump into today's show, I've got a really exciting announcement to make. The autumn cohorts for Start Your Podcast group program are now open. There are 5 dates between September and October, and it's a 6-week program that will get you launched before Christmas. So if podcasting was on your to-do list this year, if you really want to get your podcast up and done by the end of 2023, then come and join me for one of those cohorts and let's make it happen. I have a free masterclass available for you called Understanding the Power of Podcasting. You can go over to donnaeade.com/masterclass, watch the masterclass and get access to that enrollment. I hope to see you in one of the autumn cohorts very soon. That's donnaeade.com/masterclass. Let's get back to the show. You're listening to the Wedding Procast UK. My name is Donna and I am your host, 10-year wedding veteran and CEO and founder of the Society of Professional Wedding Vendors. On the podcast this week, we have Maddy Shine. She is known as the SEO and online visibility queen. Her mission is to drive women to the top of Google and beyond, taking you from SEO overwhelm to her true meaning of SEO, seeking exciting opportunities. Based in London, Maddy is easily spotted by her blue hair and large and colourful earrings. So this is going to be a fantastic episode, everybody. Let's jump in. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Today I have none other than the visibility queen herself, Maddy Jones, with us on the podcast. Hi, Maddy. How are you?
Hello. So nice to be here. Thank you so much, Donna. Here I am.
Here you are. So for those of us that don't know you, obviously I do, but for those that are listening that don't, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do and a little bit about your background? Because it's a very interesting background.
Well, how long do we have? Hello, everyone. I'm Maddy Jones. I'm also known as Maddy Shine, for that is my Instagram name. And basically, I help businesses, primarily women-led businesses, with getting found on page 1 of Google, with getting out there, getting their face on camera, basically being seen more so that they can grow their businesses in a way that is not just buy or sell, but, really does put the bread and butter on the table, so to speak.
Yeah. So it's actually kind of that, rather than just here's how to sell or, here's how to get people to buy, here's how to connect with people and get a connection with them so that they want to buy for you. And it's not that sleazy salesman kind of tactics 100%. That you have to use. Brilliant.
Yeah, totally. I think that is one of the things. I know you asked me to talk about background, which I will in just a second, but one of the biggest things that I see, with the internet, it is a web of connections. And I think that the more connected we are to the people we want to be connected to, the people that are going to benefit our business, sure, but also the community aspect of the internet. And that's the way that we're going to become more visible. We're going to be able to sell much more easily. We're going to grow our companies in a way that feels good to us, no matter if we've just started out or if we've been going 25 years and think, oh Lord, I haven't been doing this online stuff. Where on earth do I start? Then that's a really good principle to start off with, the community of connections. But that's essentially why I got started in it. My background, obviously my job now didn't exist when I was at school. So when it came to the careers tests, then it was all sorts of different things are being suggested. I think one of them was social worker. I mean, I would just cry all the time. I'm just such an empath. I'd be like, okay, sure. I wouldn't be able to do my job. Yeah. What else would a stage manager? Yes. Okay. Organizing large groups of people to do different things. Absolutely. That's what I do in my job now as well. And, so there's sort of different aspects, but basically I learned to code back when I was a teenager. And then I went on and studied business and marketing. I've been basically learning to code and designing websites in one form or another for 22 years. And so it's really kind of all snowballed from there. After working in marketing for many years here in London, 9-to-5 jobs and things like that, then I thought, there's something to this whole freelance thing. And tried side hustling in a number of different avenues. But it wasn't until I actually got made redundant in the last recession that I got basically, everything sort of crumbled before everything had to be built up again, so to speak. And I took my redundancy check and went off to India and lived there for a bit. And it was amazing. Highly recommend doing that. I lived there for 6 months. It was brilliant. And then actually I did that for 5 more years. So I used to basically do contract work in London whilst also doing the side hustle stuff and building that up. And then I would do that for 6 months, and then I would go traveling for 6 months. And so I did that for 5 years, and it was amazing. And in that time I got engaged, I got married, and I got divorced. I really fit it all in, I really thought there's no like, I don't really do
no half measures.
It's not really exactly, like I pour my drink. So basically, so essentially, when I was planning my wedding, I was traveling at the time, and I really wanted to have, a humanist wedding in a field. And this was back in 2011, 2012. And that was, whilst it was considered becoming trendy, it certainly wasn't a popular thing. There certainly, weren't that many wedding blogs. There was like just a couple really, and all that kind of vibe. And so what I did was, it's a really unusual way of doing it, but I entered all the competitions on all the wedding blogs I could find. So I won a wedding planner for a 2-hour consultation, like a luxury one, but she really helped me sort my brain out. It was great. I won our wedding photography package, Cassandra Lane. She was amazing. Manchester-based wedding photographer. She was just starting out at the time. And then it was great because it immediately paid off, because one of my bridesmaids booked her for the wedding, full package. So she was like, great, it's done, good. It already worked. But yeah, it was huge. So the fact that the amount of energy that I put into this. And then of course my wedding was featured on one of the wedding blogs where I'd won the competition. And then I started writing as a real bride. And then I started being passed around, so to speak. So people found out, they were like, oh, hang on a second, Maddy knows stuff about marketing and SEO. Like, and I was like, yes, I do. So I started working for different wedding businesses, loads of different wedding suppliers, wedding bloggers, writing, SEO stuff. And then people sort of started finding out, oh, right, she's also got quite a big personality with it all.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get her along to give some talks. So I thought, okay, great. And I thought, well, on the outside, I was like, oh yeah, great. On the inside, I was like, oh, holy Lord. What am I going to say? This is going to be like back at school, like what on earth? So yeah, that was, a good 7 years ago now. And I went full time with this 6 years ago, and everything has just basically evolved in such a dramatic fashion. I was doing a lot of done for you services back then, and now I don't do any done for you services apart from one retainer client, but I don't work on any other retainer clients. And I teach courses, I have a membership, podcast myself, and all this stuff that I never thought that I would do, but I absolutely love it. Love it. So that's the short version, would you believe, of of my background into this. But yeah, that's how I got started.
Oh dear. Do you know what? It's fascinating. And I know you guys can't see, but I'm sure the image that Maddy has given me for the podcast graphic will show. She's a very creative individual, from her hair to her jewelry, you can just see the creativity inside you. And I think that actually, as the wedding industry is a very creative industry, and we often struggle, and I've said it before on the podcast, with, keeping focused on the business stuff because we find it boring and dull, and we'd rather have the camera in our hand or, have the calligraphy pen in our hand. Having somebody who is creative talk to you about something that we consider the boring tech side of the business, having you be able to understand it and share that knowledge with people who are creative, I think it just comes across better and it sinks in better for people to sort of get it from a creative mind. So I'm so glad to have you, because SEO is one of those things that as soon as you say it, people go, whoop, no, don't even go there with me. So I'm really pleased to jump into this.
I completely get it, honestly. And I love that you think I'm creative. I'm really, I describe myself as not a creative, but that it's all relative. It's all completely subjective. Yes, I've got bright blue hair. I always wear massive shoulder length earrings. I have all these jewels on, and I kind of look like a drama school teacher in many ways, but it's just don't I do. And that's fine. I love that vibe. But I do also see that it's a classic case of comparisonitis, because this is why people aren't working on their SEO, just to jump ahead, because people are like, oh no, I can't possibly write about that. I can't put myself out there about that. I can't be found for that. Or they're very resentful that they're not being found for that when they think they're way better than everyone else in the industry. So there's kind of like two extreme attitudes. And that's what I love to talk about. Yes, of course, I can talk about where to put your keywords, and I can talk about, tools and apps and techniques and all that kind of thing. But until you really look at why you're not doing this already, it's not just that you don't know how, it's okay, which attitude am I really trying to attach myself to here? And unless I'm willing just to be a little bit more open-minded about this, then I'm never going to write that damn blog post. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just not going to hit publish, right?
Absolutely. And that exact comparison, either you feel you're not good enough to have that opinion and to voice it, or you think it's going to fall completely on deaf ears and nobody's going to read it, and you think it's the bee's knees. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. So as we jump into this, what I'd like to start with is, what's the biggest mistake you see people making when it comes to their visibility strategy?
Basically getting caught up in those two attitudes that I just shared. That's the biggest mistake. Yes, there are always going to be ways to improve writing your content. There are always going to be new apps, new tools, new techniques, things like that. But because people are like, I'm completely overwhelmed, I don't know where to begin, then one of the biggest mistakes I do see is just simply not starting. And that's often because they haven't found the right expert to learn from, which is precisely why I have a job. When I launched in, you said, oh yeah, you need someone relatable to oh yeah, I like her, so therefore I'm going to learn from her. It's a bit like, I used to use this analogy of like, no one ever saw the point in maths at school, so you weren't really inspired to learn about it unless you were naturally very good at it. Same with French verbs, like all these kinds of things, right? But actually, when we see the point of it, then we're more inspired to do it. And so I think then when I learn from someone who I'm engaged with, then I'm going to be like, oh yeah, I do want to do what she says. I want to see if it works actually for me. But as a business owner, we've got no head teacher to come along and rap us on the knuckles. We've got no one to give us an A star if we do hit publish. We have to learn that process of self-validation. Can you tell I've just started working with a life coach, and I'm absolutely obsessed with this whole process. I really am so passionate about it, because I really do see that I'm like, yep, okay, you put the keyword in here, you put the keyword in here, you put the keyword in here. And people are like, oh yeah, but I don't think I can hit publish. Or they'll be like, I have spent months writing this one blog post. I'm like, why didn't you choose something easier to write about? Just hit publish.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be a thesis. And it's because we get caught in this, because last time I wrote something long, it was at school and I didn't do very well, and the teacher did this. Or I was at uni and it had to be a dissertation or something like this, or maybe they've never written something as long. But this is the thing, you don't have to do it all right away, and you certainly don't have to be perfect. One of my favorite sayings is done is better than perfect. And that is definitely something to keep in mind when you're working on promoting your business, which is all SEO is. Yes, it stands for search engine optimization, and yes, you can get caught up in oh, Google hates me or Google loves me. Actually, it's, are we being clear about our business, or are we not being clear? Because if we're not being clear, then you will have that attitude of Google hates me, or whatever it might be.
I love that. Oh dear. And it is one of those things. I completely follow the same theory that, it's better to get it going than for it to be perfect. So I completely agree with that.
Completely. I mean, if you think about it, when a car hasn't been used for months, so basically, let's use this analogy. I love analogies. So basically, my mom's car, of course, in lockdown, she wasn't going anywhere, so she wasn't using her car. And basically, of course, it's much harder to then get going, right? So of course, you had to like poodle it around the block once a week just to keep everything oiled up. And I don't know what the technical stuff is, but to keep it all going. Otherwise, it's going to be that much harder to start again. And I think that's what also the approach is with visibility, particularly in the past 12 months. Of course, the wedding industry has been beyond challenged. And so I think that a lot of people will have the attitude right now of, oh my goodness, I haven't been doing anything, so therefore I'll continue to do nothing, because I'm overwhelmed by the idea of starting. And also the other thing is, oh, I've seen all these other people continue to show up. How have they had the wherewithal to do that? And actually, maybe I should start doing something. Oh yeah, then of course, oh Lord, but we're actually going to go into a really busy season, perhaps double busy with the wedding season ahead, right? So I think there's a lot going on for a lot of people, and I think that it's like, oh, why should I bother being visible? But actually, doing SEO, doing marketing, anything like that is all about the long game. Do you want your business to still exist in a couple of years? Do you want your business to still exist next year?
Yeah.
Your business to still exist in 6 months' time. Okay, yes, you might be needing a big lie down in a cold, dark room in 6 months' time, but you've got to think about the long game.
Yeah.
So I would suggest keeping it simple, like simply just writing about what you've been doing. And yes, maybe you haven't been doing the weddings and the shoots that you wanted. Maybe you haven't been doing the creating that you wanted, but you have been living, and so is everybody else. Everybody else has also been living through a pandemic. That's the great thing about showing up right now. There's not like these people are off doing fancy shit, excuse my French. And some people and the other people are like, well, I'm not being invited to these things. There's like we're living through this together, and I think that you don't have to pretend that you're not.
Yeah.
I remember when I was doing a talk in December to the wedding industry group, and someone said to me, do you think I should mention COVID on my website? I was like, yes, 100%. You can't pretend it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
With some of the for those wedding suppliers who have been able to work when it has opened up over the past 12 months, I've been like, yes, blog about those weddings, because it shows you can do small and intimate weddings. It shows that you can be adaptable this way, that way. For some people, I know it's not viable. I get that. But for those who it is, great. Show up and talk about those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then also there'll be a whole bunch of stuff that you have never blogged about before, and you'll be like, oh my goodness, but it's been like 4 years since I did the shoot, but I still really love it. Great. Blog about it. It doesn't matter that happened 4 years ago. Everyone understands that you haven't been able to do work as you wish over the past 12 months.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So hopefully that's already giving people some ideas. I can hear some brains clicking already. I'm kind of going, oh yeah, okay, all right. Maybe it's not going to be so bad after all.
It's true. You've got to get it going. And if you've been sitting there not doing it because you haven't known what to write about for the last 12 months, so you haven't been doing your blog, just get it going again. And it doesn't have to be, like you say, it doesn't have to be a massive essay. Just get it going and start, and that's better than nothing. So moving on, what are 3 things that we could do to increase our visibility? So we're looking at three ways or 3 tips that people can implement in their business, something simple maybe that they can do just to start increasing their visibility.
One of them is be more obvious. People don't mention their products or services nearly enough, in my opinion. And people are like, oh, but I want to be subtle about it. Thing is, your website, your social media profiles are not the place to be subtle, because if you're subtle, then people are going to forget about you. Now, I'm not saying you have to dye your hair blue, and I'm not saying that you have to, be an extrovert or anything like that. Lord knows I'm not an extrovert. I'm actually an introvert. I need a lot of recharging time in between stuff. But you do need to be more obvious when you are posting to social media. You do need to be more obvious when you are showing up, so that you are more memorable. So basically, a great thing to do is to share advice. If you haven't started blogging yet, start doing, those kind of carousel posts on Instagram, 1 tip per slide, really, really simple to use in Canva. Great way to, because if you tell people to save it, loads of people will. If you tell people to share it, people will to their stories, things like this. You can even experiment with reels. I know a lot of people are like, oh my God, terrifying. You don't have to dance around. Yeah, you don't have to dance around and point to the air. You can just talk for 30 seconds or even 15 seconds. You don't even have to be on camera, particularly if you're a wedding photographer. Create a slideshow using a Canva template. There's Reels templates in there now. Just create a slideshow with timing and put it to music on Reels. There you go. Done. Talk about the different locations, tag the venues, tag the other suppliers. Keep it really simple, just like you always have been doing when you share things and do shout outs and that kind of stuff. But we just need to upgrade that a little bit. But by doing these kinds of steps, you're then more obvious. Another way to be more obvious is on your website pages. So you need a homepage, of course. You've already got a homepage, but you need an about page. Tell your story. When we meet people, when we have those client consultations, whether it's on Zoom or whether it's in real life, we start telling stories. That is how we connect as human beings. It could be your journey to the meeting. It could be what you had for dinner last week. It could be anything, but it's telling a story. And that's what you need to do on your about page. And also it will help you start to find your confidence as well with blogging. You also need to have, of course, a contact page. You also need to, of course, have pricing pages. Whether you publish your prices or not, we're not gonna get into that debate right now. We don't have
Yeah,
that
let's
time.
not.
No, we're not. No. But you do need to have a page per service or a page per product, because when we try and bunch it all in together and go, oh, that'll do, then it's going to be harder to point people to, because they're going to be like, no, scroll to that bit. No, not that bit. Scroll to that bit. And actually, it'll be much easier to add our keywords. So the first tip is be more obvious. Then the second tip becomes a lot more easier when we just keep thinking about, you're going to be like, okay, need to think about be more obvious, right? Keywords. Everyone gets hung up on what on earth their keywords are.
Mm-hmm.
It's simply your product names, your product ranges, your service options, your services. That is the fundamental of what your keywords are, right? But people then go, well, how many should I have? Isn't that too many? No, ideally you want loads. And actually you'll grow your list by doing this. You'll grow your list of keywords by doing this. Because then what you need to do is, once you have your keywords, then you need to match up one keyword phrase to every page, to every blog post. And then you're going to be like, well, that's loads of pages. That's loads of blog posts. Yes, that is the point. Everyone's very worried about having too big a website. And particularly in the wedding industry, your images, yes, you need to keep a little bit of a self-control on how many images you share, because it can slow down your website. But pages wise, as long as you're being specific, being obvious, going back to that first tip, then, you're really going to find it a lot easier to promote your business.
I find that quite difficult with keywords myself, because
Yeah.
I've got a plugin on my website that tells me sort of, whether I'm a green light or a red light on my SEO. And if I use the same keyword, it has a fit. And I'm like, well, a lot. And I think this is a thing with a lot of wedding industry people, is it's like, well, I want to be known for being a wedding photographer. So why wouldn't I use the word photography multiple times? So what's the deal with like multiple uses of keywords, and how do we sort of change it slightly so that it's not exactly the same, but we're still getting the right message out there?
Of course, yes. So let's say you're a London wedding photographer, okay? So we're going to use London because it's a very, very competitive market, the London wedding photography world. And also I live here, so it's easier for me to remember when I use this example. So basically, if you're a London wedding photographer, absolutely, you can mention that you're a London wedding photographer on every page, on every blog post. You can. However, that is not the focus of every page and every blog post. So this is where you need to think a little bit more skillfully about what is the focus. So it could be on your pricing page, London wedding photography pricing. That would be your keyword phrase for that page, for example. Let's say with your about page, people are like, what's my keyword for that? Well, this is where, again, you need to be a little bit more skillful. So it might be, you might put a adjective in there. So it would be natural London wedding photographer. That would be your keyword phrase. Do you see what I mean? So it just has to be slightly different sometimes. But then we get a little bit more interesting, because we're like, well, actually, I don't just want to focus on London. I also want to do the home counties surrounding London. So then we also have a keyword phrase, Surrey wedding photographer. Then we also have a keyword phrase, Surrey wedding photographer pricing. If you happen to want to also do a pricing page for that. Some people don't, that's fine, whatever. But then you start to think about, okay, so my different ranges. Okay, so I've got different geographic locations. So I've got Surrey wedding photography, that can be a whole blog category, Buckinghamshire wedding photography, Hertfordshire wedding photography, and so on and so on. Then we start thinking about the types of weddings we like to get. You're not going to book the same wedding photographer for a heavy metal tattoo, radically alternative in a super cool old biker's shed up in Camden. I love that venue, but it's like, that's a very, very different wedding from like, I don't know, Syon Park in Surrey, right? It's a very, very different wedding. And, where it's all going to, like at Syon Park, you might have all sorts of more traditional elements. I'm massively generalizing, but it's an example. And so essentially, then you want to start talking about, okay, I want to get more bar weddings. So that would also be a keyword phrase. That would be a category in your blog. So you get barn wedding photography. You might have rustic wedding photography. You look at the types of venues. You look at the adjectives. You look at the outdoor, garden, like literally specific types of weddings that you want to attract more of. And then you can see how the keyword list can get longer. So yes, of course, you mentioned London wedding photography. If that's a business goal of yours to get more of those kind of bookings, great, go for it. Mention it as much as you like, but it's not the focus keyword phrase. And that's what you're putting in Yoast. which is the tool that you were talking about.
It was indeed, yes.
Yeah.
Look how good she is. She even knows what tools I'm using just from the description. So what would be our third tip, Maddy?
So a third tip would be to start creating that juicy content. So basically, a lot of people are like, oh, I've heard like we need to put ourselves out there more and all this kind of thing. We've covered that a little bit already, I know, but really start documenting what you get up to. The reason why blogs started becoming a thing was because, well, first of all, people really liked writing online diaries. That was originally why they became a thing. But then because actually search engines really like a dynamic website. And what that means is that what a website that's regularly updated. The easiest way to regularly update a website is through blogging, because you're constantly changing the website. That's technically what you're doing, because you're updating it with posts, right? And then what you're doing is actually giving yourself a reason to actually then show up on social media, because then you want to share the blogs there. And you don't just share them once. Let's say you're writing 5 tips on how to plan a wedding outdoors in April. Quite a radical idea, but of course, because everything that people are like, yeah, let's do it. So you've got 5 tips in this blog post. Then you've got actually 5 reasons to show up on social media, because you can share 1 tip for every social media post. Does that mean you share 5 in consecutively? Well, you could. You could also mix it up with other things as well. So there's all sorts of different ways then you could then make more content from that one blog post. And I think that's the thing that I would suggest everyone start looking at. Like, okay, yes, I could make it an IGTV and I could make it a YouTube video and all this kind of thing, but you don't have to do all of it. Just start to see, actually, I could make a slideshow on my Instagram from that one blog post. I could share 1 tip per social media post. I could, dare I say it, make a reel. I could put it in my email signature, put it in my autoresponder, feature it on my homepage, use it in my inquiry responses. That's a really, really great way to get more click-throughs. So my one retainer client, Fiona Kelly, for photography, she's fantastic. She is a London wedding photographer. And she and I have been blogging together for 7 years. Yeah, coming on 7 years. And so basically what we've done is we've done it all. We've done it all. We've tried this, that, and the other thing. And what I've seen has really worked for her is her advice pieces. So yes, of course, she shares the real weddings and she shares the shoots. But we write a lot of advice pieces, and they continue to get tons of traffic years later. It continues to be top 10 most popular content on the website. So yes, I'm gonna have a 3B. I know you said 3 tips, but I'm gonna have a 3B. The 3B is check your Google Analytics, for God's sake. Like, we all are so obsessed with Instagram likes because everyone else can see them, and we think we're being judged by them. I don't know if many of our brides and grooms would ever book us, based on the fact that we got 63 likes, not 163 likes, but that's by the by. That's a whole other podcast. Please look at your Google Analytics, because that will tell you what is working and what isn't. If you're not getting as much traffic as you like, or if you're getting a lot of traffic but you're not getting the sales, then that's when you can start to tweak the content. That's when you can start to see, okay, which blogs are being looked at, which and when and what time of day, and how long are they staying on the website. These kinds of different things. I mean, I could talk for ages about Google Analytics, but please at least start having a look at it.
Yeah, I agree. I actually look at mine once a month, which is, what I sort of have a CEO meeting with myself every Monday, and
love it.
I sort of go through all my social media stats. So I look at how many views my reels have had, how many views my posts had, which was my most popular post that week, and all of that on all the different socials. And then once a month I dive into Google Analytics and I look at what are my top 5 most viewed pages in the last month, and start looking at things like that. And I understand that Google Analytics can be very overwhelming, so you can always go to an expert and book an hour with them to go over Google Analytics with you, so that you know what you should be looking for and what's important, because all of those green and red numbers and up and down and bounce rates confuse the heck out of me, and I almost have to go back and look again every time I look at it to see is it up or down, which is better, and all of that, because it can be really confusing. But just taking that time to understand it, because there is absolutely no point on this earth putting all that content on your website if it isn't working for you. Like, what an absolute waste of your time. So definitely invest some time and maybe a bit of money in getting some training around Google Analytics and what you should be looking out for and how you can use it and how you can use your keywords better, because that is key to, like, if you don't have a keyword for that blog post and it's just a randomness all the time, then nobody's going to find it. So what was the point in writing it? So although we said, you know, just start and get going is better than nothing, if it's not hitting the right people, then it is going to be a waste of your time. So yeah, get started and then start investing in some training or some help in making sure that what you're doing is working for you, would be my
100%.
tip.
100%. I run a workshop sometimes called WTF Am I Looking At, which is all about Google Analytics.
There you go. You heard it here
Honestly,
first, guys.
There's never a dull moment with me, you know.
Oh dear. So of course, having you on the podcast, we would be remiss if we didn't ask you the big fat question in the room, which is, how on earth do we get to page 1 of Google, Maddy?
Well, the 3 tips will help you get there.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, like, it's simply going for it, obviously, is a large part of it. I think that sheer hard work and determination, I think, letting go of that fear that what you're doing isn't working, investing in training, of course, but it's really understanding that the internet is a giant community of connections. It's looking out for people who have similar ideal clients, offering to write for them. Obviously not your competitors I'm talking about people who complement your business well. You know, particularly in the wedding industry, I think it's so fantastic how there's so many industry networking events, and yet that isn't so well translated online quite often. And so actually, when you start to interview each other on each other's blogs, you know, whether it's video blog, or whether it's a podcast, whatever it is, it's basically forging those connections. And I think that is actually an incredibly powerful way to do business, because we sometimes think that to get to page 1 of Google, we have become some kind of ruthless person with millions of pounds. We don't at all. I've seen one woman shows, one man shows get to page 1, no problem. And that kind of brings me to another point, which I really, really wanted to express, was there isn't just one page 1 of Google. And a lot of people think there is. There isn't just one page 1 that we're all competing for, because there are, I think, now over 1 trillion websites on the internet. So essentially, I might have just made that up. I don't think I have. But basically, when you are thinking about that, obviously with only 6 or 7 places on page 1 of Google, then come on, like, that's ridiculous. Again, which is why the list of keywords is going to help you, because that's where you're spreading your bets. You're not putting all your eggs in one basket. You're not getting over obsessed with, just one keyword phrase and then being disheartened when you don't do it every week, when you don't get to page 1 every week. But honestly, it's creating the content, building those links, forging those relationships online as well as offline, not just in your DMs, but actually openly do it on your website, whether it's interviews, guest blogs, styled shoots. Obviously, they bring back links, getting listed on directories. Now, directories, I feel like that's a whole other podcast episode in itself in many ways, because a lot of people, when I say that magical word, everyone thinks immediately of the paid wedding directories. It's not just that. It's directories not just in your industry, but in your town, in your county, in your city, in your country. It's directories that might be related to one aspect of what you do. So rather than specifically wedding industry, it might be photography related. Things like this. Find different ways. Everyone poops on awards. Well, a lot of people do. It's a great way to get PR. You know, it's no matter what your opinion might be. I've heard there's mixed views about styled shoots, for example. And actually it's a fantastic way for everyone to get PR, promoting each other, promoting yourself, promoting what you can do. And I do think that, I don't really quite subscribe to the whole every bit of PR is good PR, but it is how you're seen online. And that is what SEO is. So what you want people to do is to Google what you're selling, not your brand name, what you're selling. And that's what you appear on page 1 of Google for. So really the spreading the bets thing, forging the links, creating the content, finding reasons to show up, and basically doing it regardless of how you feel that day. I think that's also another thing. Like, yes, of course, if you're not doing very well, like, there's obviously been a lot of mental health challenges. But what I'm saying is, like, I don't really feel like posting today, so I won't. Like, just show up, just show a photo and write, Bob and Sue were absolutely awesome on their wedding day last year in Scion Park. I'm sitting here just being nostalgic about it. Like, even if it's just that, then you're going to grow in your confidence and you're then going to find yourself on page 1 of Google. It's really not that, I wouldn't say it's not that hard, because it is hard work, but it's completely doable to do yourself.
Yeah. I think that is such an important point as well, to show up for yourself even when you don't want to, because it is hard. And you know, I've talked on the podcast previously about mental health issues that I've suffered with, and it's so easy to get yourself into that dark place and stay there. Just the act of doing that, you're doing yourself a favor, putting just something out there. And I've spoken before on the show about social media as well, and how, you know, that one blog post you were talking about, how, you know, all of the things that you were listing off, you know, you might feel overwhelmed by that, but they're just options. And it means that that one blog post could, you could almost make it last you months and months. I mean, I've done a social media thing where I said, you know, one blog post can last you a whole month, with giving it out again each week with a different tip, like you were saying about the five points that you're making, and you can drop one each week, and that's made it last a month. But then if you take that into your reels and into your stories and as a YouTube or a slideshow and all of these things, you don't have to make loads and loads of content. And I've talked about before, consistency being more important than volume. So if you can only put out one a month, then only put one out a month, but then you've got to use it for all of those other things, so that you're bringing the traffic back to it. So, you know, you can do one a month and utilize your social medias to keep driving traffic to it, and then you do your next one and you do the same. Or you do one a week, and oh my goodness, you've got content for years after one year, you know. So and it's amazing how much you can get from one good blog post, and it's well worth spending the time doing it.
And also, you touched on a really great point. I mean, it was great, everything, but you really touched on one great point I want to pick up on, is that if you are struggling with any aspect of running your business, then do invest in that support. And I'm not just saying that as an expert. Obviously, I've got courses, I've got memberships, all this kind of thing. But I constantly look at, okay, is there an area where I want to be stronger in? Okay, I need to seek out an expert who I want to book, whether it's a one-to-one, whether it's simply reaching out in a Facebook group where I am. We are not designed to do this stuff on our own. Yes, we all want to say, I did it all on my own, and you still did, even if you spoke to an expert or spoke with your network about it. Everyone wants to have that. That's obviously why we started our own businesses, because we want to have that boost. We want to say that we did it on our own and we still did that hard work. But the hard work also includes reaching out for support in whatever way that looks to you. And I don't think there's any shame in that. I think there's a lot of confidence to be had in that. And I think that it's incredibly important to actually go, oh my God, you know what? I have absolutely no idea what my keywords are. Or I have absolutely no idea. Like, I was asked today in my membership, like, Maddy, I really want to blog, but I'm so new. Like, aren't people going to judge me? And I was like, well, the people who are going to judge you aren't going to hire you anyway. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, whatever. If I had listened to the fears that were going to tell me, like, I wouldn't look like this, I wouldn't sound like this, I certainly wouldn't be showing up. Like, I see how much benefit I've gained from it, and the people I've worked with have gained from simply just taking it step by step and reaching out for support when they want it.
I think that's such a good point. And I always feel like there should be, like, almost, you have to reinvest in your business and in yourself, or you don't grow. So for me, it's like taking that, maybe it's once a quarter, you look at one area of your business. What do I need to do to improve here? Go and find an expert. Like, as soon as you can outsource things and you can afford to do that, by God, give it up to somebody else. You know, you don't have to do it all. I can't wait for that day. But when you are starting, one of the things that I learned very early on in business, and I cannot for the life of me remember who taught me it, was that you never farm something out until you understand it yourself. And this was in regard to Facebook ads, particularly. You know, you need to learn it, understand it, at least at some basic level before you farm it out, because how do you know that that person is doing the job right and that they're actually using your money wisely and investing it wisely? So if you are going to get somebody to do your Google AdWords for you, or you want somebody to do your blog posts for you, and they saying they're a keyword expert expert and your Google Analytics aren't reflecting that, you need to understand Google Analytics and have that knowledge yourself, so that when they're not showing up for you and you're paying them to do that, you can go back to them and say, well, hey, those blog posts that you've done for me aren't performing very well on Google Analytics. What's up? Because you don't want to be paying money to somebody that you think is an expert in something and then have them like poodle along, do exactly what you could have done and not get you better results than you could have got yourself. So definitely once a quarter, look at some area of your business, invest in some sort of training, whether it's one-to-one, whether it's a group coaching, whether it is, you know, a little course that can give you some base idea of something to get you by for the now. And then when you outsource it, at least you've got an understanding of it, so you know what it should look like when somebody's doing their job right.
I am going to play devil's advocate there.
Go on.
I don't agree with you, but I think that's fine. I think that a lot of people are quite happy just being a solo entrepreneur and they don't want to outsource. So because they're the creative, do you see what I mean? So I teach people, when I teach people how to blog with my Blogging for Gold course, for example, they are the voice of their business. They're the one meeting the client. And I find that when people outsource their blogs, they don't look, maybe it is because they haven't done it themselves, but they don't get the return on investment they're looking for. Not because then that person is not a good blogger, because there are many, many amazing blogging copywriters out there. But what I find is that people don't, you know, they're like, oh, it doesn't sound like me, or it's not how I would do it, or things like this. And they get caught up in that. And that's when outsourcing starts to get a bad name.
Yeah.
So I would say outsource the things that don't require your voice.
Oh yeah.
That's
I completely agree.
Say.
Yeah, no, I absolutely,
Okay.
yeah, no, I agree there. Like I couldn't outsource my podcast. That would be ridiculous, but I can outsource the editing, you know, because I don't need to be doing that side of things. Yeah, no, absolutely agree with you. Yeah. When you, especially when it's a personal blog, like if it's an information blog, finance blog, things like that, it doesn't necessarily have a voice of one person. But when it comes to the creative side of our industry, then yeah, there is a voice, and it is that voice that resonates with your customers. So they need to hear it. What you can do is have your blog viewed by a expert in keywords, for example, and they could say, you could tweak this, you could add this in here, and that would be what you would be sort of looking to do more so with a blog than completely outsourcing it. Of course, there's always guest blogging, which was what you were talking about earlier, having people either guest blog or do interviews, and that gives you your backlinks, and obviously that voice would be different, but it's a one-off piece and people will appreciate it because it's being seen to be coming from somebody else. You're not trying to pass it off as your own. So yeah, completely agree with you when it comes to the blog outsourcing. I misspoke when I mentioned that. Oh gosh, thank you, Maddy, so much for coming on the show. It's been really good to talk about some things that I think a lot of people are a bit scared to think about sometimes, and it can be a bit of a sticking point for people. So tell us how people can get in touch with you, where they can find you, and how you work with people.
So thank you so much, Donna. It's been really, really wonderful to have this lovely chat with you. Thank you for laughing at my jokes. I am on Instagram. Come and follow me, maddy.shine. I have also got a Facebook group. It's called Seeking Exciting Opportunities, which is what I like to say SEO stands for. So do check me out there. And of course, come and check me out on my website, maddyshine.co.uk. Now you can work with me, come and join my Visibility A membership, which is for female entrepreneurs. You can come and join my Blogging for Gold 12-week course. And so we'll be running that again, hopefully in the autumn. And you can also work with me one-to-one. So basically we work in kind of 3-month one-to-one packages, which is essentially where we go through your website. You really get the kind of tailored whole enchilada there. Now there's basically, I think that with SEO and all that kind of stuff, it does feel like a minefield. So do check out my visibility podcast. It's called the High Vis Podcast, where I talk about all sorts of different things, like obviously you just heard here. But yeah, basically all the links will also be in the show notes.
Yeah, I will make sure they are all there. So nice and clickable and easy to find Maddy, because I think she is definitely one for you guys to go and follow and get in touch with. So thank you so much for being on the show, Maddy. Thank you guys for listening in, and I will see you next week. Bye for now. Don't forget to hit those stars and leave a review of the podcast where you listen if you found value in what you heard today. It's a free way you can help the podcast reach more people just like you.